the end of the day, you've gotten a ton of studying done that you otherwise wouldn't have. Important investment in long-term retention, highest form of learning and the best form of learning you're getting, because you're literally simulating what they're going to be asking you on an exam. Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the 3 simple study methods that I use to get A's in med school. Everyone studies differently. These are the methods that work the best for me. Use this video as inspiration and let's jump into it. The methods that I use are a lot different than what I used in undergrad, and I definitely believe that if I used these methods in undergrad, I would have so much more free time. But the main thing is that less is more. So if you're able to find those high quality resources that work for you, that's really what you want to be going for. Number 1 is to master the big picture and look for the connections within the material. Now there's definitely different ways to do it, but one thing that I found is super helpful is doing handwritten notes. Yes, like going back and handwriting my notes. I used to be an iPad girly and I would just do everything on the iPad, but just something about paper that naturally works for me better. Basically what I do is I go through the lecture slides and I write an outline of all the big high yield points and topics, like going through the subject headings and seeing which different vocab words and topics go within each subject, and creating like a tree diagram. I can see how different things fit together. When I go through lectures, it's a very linear style of learning where you're basically doing slide after slide after slide. So sometimes it's hard to see the connections between slides. There are different topics that fit under a specific subject. So for example, if you're learning about different types of gastritis, you might have acute and chronic causes, and within those causes, you have different types. So it really helps to break it down into a tree diagram or write it out so that you can really see the connections. And what I try to do is to condense one lecture into a 1-page outline summary tree diagram. If I need a quick review, I can basically go back and look at that 1 page that summarizes the lectures and the main high yield points that I need from that lecture. Important to, when you're writing these tree diagrams, not to be copying verbatim, word for word, the PowerPoint, because when you do this, you're basically just like regurgitating the PowerPoint again. The main purpose of doing this and writing it and having it stick in your head is to see the relations and the connections within the material. So what you really want to do is focus on those high yield points and not write out every single detail, but try to find the connections and create a web or some kind of diagram that connects everything and condenses it into one easy to read high yield page. Second thing that I target in my studying is the details. Now with med school and also some pre-med courses or just a lot of sciencey courses in general, there are a lot of details that you basically just have to rote memorize. The best softwares that I've used and also a ton of med students and pre-med students use is Anki, which is a spaced repetition software, and it's basically flashcards. So like Quizlet, but it has an algorithm that will generate the cards based on your level of learning and how familiar you are with the cards. Good, and you know a certain concept, then it won't give you that card as often as concepts that you have trouble with. And it's a great way to kind of space out your learning and really drill in the details in kind of a gamified fashion. I use Anki on my phone, so it makes it like a phone app if you have the discipline to not go on like Instagram or another app. It makes it super convenient because if you can use it on your phone, let's say you're grocery shopping and there's a long line or you're waiting for someone, you can knock out cards in like 5 minutes, and by the end of the day, you've gotten a ton of studying done that you otherwise wouldn't have. Combining 1 and 2, I use 1, my big picture outline, for getting the big picture of the lecture, and 2, I use Anki to drill in the detail. I'm not worried when I'm taking notes about writing every minuscule detail, but I know that I have my big picture outline for the connections, and then to drill in the details, I have Anki. Now, the method works if you do the outline first and then you do Anki. It might work differently from some other people who are really good at just using Anki and knowing the cards and just having a mental schemata that they can fit it into. But if you do Anki before, sometimes it can come off as a bunch of scattered details that are not interrelated. So it really helps to get the big picture outline to see where all those Anki cards are aligned when you actually do the Anki cards. And I feel like the long-term retention is so much better if you do the big picture, the outline, your notes, you actually understand the material, and then you drill in the details with Anki after. Now, this method definitely takes a little bit more time if you're handwriting your notes especially, but I really think it's an important investment in long-term retention. Even though, for example, if someone watches the lecture and they can finish all of the lectures in like an hour versus for me, it takes me 2 hours to get through, but I have that long-term retention and I drill it in with Anki too. You don't have to constantly keep going back and reviewing because you have that strong foundation to build off of. Third thing that helped me get A's in med school is using practice questions. My school is really great about giving us weekly quizzes that are representative of how we're going to be tested and that help us to apply the material in a more clinical context. Honestly, practice questions and applying the material that you're learning is like, I think, the highest form of learning and the best form of learning you're getting, because you're literally simulating what they're going to be asking you on an exam. Not every school and every course is going to have practice questions available, but you can try to have your friends make practice questions or use AI like ChatGPT to generate practice questions. Admittedly, I'm not the best with going through practice questions. Sometimes I get really caught up in doing the outlines and the Anki, but it's really important to actually apply what you're learning. In addition to the above 3 things that I use, I also think that mnemonics are super helpful. They're like cheat codes basically, because if you can come up with an interesting, funny saying to remember a certain condition, it will stick with you and you will not have to keep going over and over and over to memorize something. For example, with heart auscultation, you have apple pie taste so you remember aortic, tricuspid, pulmonic, and mitral valve. And that way you don't have to just remember those actual words, but you just remember the phrase and it carries you through. And you're gonna remember that for years to come. Another super big cheat code that I've been using is ChatGPT. Like, I'll use it to ask a lot of conceptual questions that I may be confused on. Use it to create charts to compare and contrast different diseases or different concepts, and it's been super useful. Of course, use it with a grain of salt because it's going to have some errors, but it has been such an upgrade in my studying and has made studying so much more enjoyable and effective and productive. Those are the 3 main study techniques that I use to get A's in med school, and I definitely think that less is more. To find those high quality resources that work for you and try not to get FOMO with all the different resources that are available. Let me know if you use any of these resources and if you want more content like this. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.